Thanks, Margaret. My name is Amy Hostetler. We're here to talk about internet buzzwords and online privacy pitfalls. So this isn't to scare you off of using the internet. We just want to talk about some of the things that you might not necessarily think about on a day-to-day basis. So can often seem impossible to keep up with all the fancy slang words that can be found across the World Wide Web. We're going to be talking about some of the common phrases related to internet privacy and security. With any luck, there should be some time at the end of this presentation to talk more about words and phrases that I might not cover, but you have questions about. So let's talk about HTTPS, encryption, and cookies. So HTTPS, you might see that sometimes when you're going to a website. This just lets you know that it is a secure version of HTTP. It means it's encrypted. The big thing that you want to walk away with this is that if you're putting in your internet passwords, if you are putting in your credit card information, anything like that, you want to make sure that you see that S up there as part of your address, just because it is encrypted. So what is encryption? We talk about, we have our original data, and then we use that little bit of encryption, and that's where the S comes into play. It scrambles all of that data up so that if I'm looking at it on the internet as it goes through my network, I might not be able to see it without having that private key, and that's where the website comes into play. And the website says, hey, I've got the code for this, I know how to read this, and then it unscrambles everything and puts it into a usable format so they know what you said. They know that your username was XYZ and your password was 123. It helps prevent unauthorized access. It keeps you a little bit more secure and more safe. So HTTPS and encryption often go hand in hand. Again, just make sure that you are putting in your information into HTTPS sites, especially if you have confidential information, that sort of stuff. Cookies, I like to bake, so we're going to have lots of food items here going through this presentation. Cookies, if you're not familiar with that, it's a small little file that's saved in your browser. It identifies who you are. So if you have a website popping up and saying, hey, we use cookies, they're going to use it to know your location, remember your username and password, or remember your browsing history. So if you aren't logged into an account, but you go shopping and you drop some awesome products into a shopping cart, you're like, maybe we'll just let that sit. We'll think about if we really want to purchase it. You close the browser, maybe you open it back up, you go to your favorite retail site again, and hey, that stuff is still in the shopping cart. That's a cookie, and that's how it's remembering without you being logged in. So let's talk about big data, data mining, and SEO. So big data is when you get a really large volume of information. It's not just one customer or client profile. That's when you have thousands or millions of people. And then when you start analyzing it for patterns, that's when we get data mining. So that's when you review that information to find new information. It's also known as predictive analysis. So the whole idea is that if I notice my main customer is between the age of 20 and 30, is a white woman that likes to shop between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. at night, that's the kind of data that they're collecting. And they can help push specific promotions to that demographic. Data mining will help you get more targeted ads, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But we give away a lot of information. We're going to talk about how some of that happens. So once they get this information, another thing that happens is SEO, which is search engine optimization. So this is different ways to get your website listed at the top of the search results. So if you're at the top of the list, much like if you're in the phone book, and your name is AAA whatever, there's lots of A listed companies for that same reason. You want to be at the top of the list. You're going to have more website hits, you're going to have more customers, and you're going to have more advertising revenue, depending on how you're making your money. Well, there's some other things that happen on the internet. We're going to talk about bots, wiki, and trolls. So a bot, you may have heard in the news, but a bot is just a little piece of software that runs automated tasks over and over and over again. This is great if you're voting for online polls. Huskers #1 forever. Huskers are actually really known for doing really well on online polls, probably due to bots. 1997 Cornhuskers are always going to be the best team of all time. None of this Alabama stuff. But it can also do things like raising the number of web page visits. So if you're paying for advertising that way, you're like, hey, we can guarantee 2,000 clicks on your website every month. But you want to make sure that those are actual people and not just little pieces of software going click, click, click on your website. You want actual people to visit you. Now, sometimes you'll hear about wikis. A wiki actually gets its name from the term Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a crowdsourced dictionary, encyclopedia, where anybody can edit it. It's open source. Well, Wikipedia is so popular now, we have what's called a wiki. And that could be about your favorite online game. It could be about your favorite TV show. Pretty much anything that you can develop a fandom about, there's a wiki for it. Because everything's on the internet, it seems like now. So then we have a troll. This is when someone baits you into a fight, a debate, a joke on the internet. It's often used as an inside joke. It can also be a verb. I trolled Eric really good the other day. I played a great joke on him. So let's talk about some of the meaner sides of these verbs. We got ransomware, we've got phishing, and we've got doxxing. So ransomware, that's where we have software that locks the victim's data away forever and publishes the data unless the victim pays a ransom. This actually happens a lot in medium-sized businesses, medium-sized offices, because which would you rather do? Would you rather make a couple $100 a day, every day, or would you like to try to play the odds and get $1,000 once every 6 months? So what happens in small offices or medium-sized offices is this piece of software will hit the network, and then they will say, hey, unless you pay us $500, unless you pay us $200, we're going to hold all of your client data hostage. Now, if you're a medical office, this could be a huge deal because you need your client information. How are you going to run that? If you're a legal office, also a big issue because you can have your, again, confidential client information accessed. And they might not necessarily publish it, but what happens is you could pay your ransom, right? Say you pay that $200, that $500, $1,000, whatever it ends up being, and then they say, well, you're going to pay us another $1,000. And it can go on. You can be out the information and the money. So the best thing to do to avoid ransomware is to make sure that you have off-site backups. You have access to data regularly that is not on your network. We have phishing. You see this a lot with social media websites. You see this in dating profiles. I'm pretty sure that Ryan is going to be touching on this a little bit later. But that's where somebody acts like they know you. Yeah, it might be part of your circle or somebody you kind of know, or you have lots of friends in common. And what they're trying to do is figure out your security questions, your security answers, passwords, credit card numbers, stuff like that. So again, kind of acting like that wolf in sheep's clothing to get more information to pretend to be you. So then we also have doxing. Doxing is a term that not everybody has heard of, but it's when somebody's anonymous identity is revealed. People often think, hey, I'm on the internet, this is anonymous. That is really not a good stance to take when it comes to your activity on the internet. You are actually probably way better known than what you think you are. So doxing isn't always malicious, but if somebody's falsely identified, it can be a safety concern. Not sure if anybody heard about the gentleman down in Kansas City in December. Basically, there was an online video game, Call of Duty. There's a couple of participants and a couple of players. They had a $2 bet. And they were going back and forth. Yeah, I won this $2 bet. No, you didn't. You suck. They're going back and forth. One of the guys said, I know who you are, and I'm going to SWAT you. So he said, hey, Andrew Finch, we're going to call in to the Kansas City Police, say I'm a threat, say that I'm armed and dangerous and suicidal. And so the SWAT team showed up at Andrew Finch's house, and they shot and killed him. Yeah. Andrew Finch doesn't play Call of Duty. He wasn't one of the two players in the bet. He lost his life over a $2 bet because he was doxxed, but it wasn't even the right dox. So being online, just keep in mind that you're not always in control of your identity. So another word that we hear a lot is the deep web, or even the dark web, and that can sound kind of scary. So let's talk about some of those things. At the top, you see some of the fun stuff. We got Google, Facebook, websites, Amazon, YouTube, lots of fun things. You don't necessarily need to have an HTTP to go to those websites. If you have them, they're nice, but you know, I'm not putting a whole lot of secure information into YouTube, or I hope not. Then we also have the deep web, and it's that part right under the surface. It's the hidden part of the iceberg. So that's gonna, again, not necessarily be anything bad, but we do have your medical records. If you do online medical records through your doctor's office or hospital, this is where you put in your bank account information. It's stuff you can't Google. If we type in Amy Hostetler bank information, we're not going to see my account number pop up. You can't Google for something on the deep web with any luck. Then we have the dark web. Down here is kind of the scarier, more nefarious sounding stuff. So that's where we have Tor, and illegal information, and the Silk Road, and Anonymous. So it's not necessarily a bad or illegal place, but let's talk a little bit more about the dark web. I've seen, especially since we've had a lot of security breaches, we'll have these advertisements, these commercials, and they've got this computer hacker, and he's got his hoodie on, and he's sitting in front of a couple of different monitors, and he's hacking away because you can see all the zeros and ones, and he's on the dark web. The dark web is not necessarily a bad place. It's just a place that not a lot of folks go. So you use Tor as your browser. So instead of Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, Firefox, Tor is your browser. And you use that in conjunction with a VPN. Basically you say, hey, I'm really over in London, and then back to New York City, maybe some San Francisco in there. So your exact location of Lincoln, Nebraska, or wherever you might be is not immediately available. It's used to create anonymity. Then we have what's called the Silk Road. So if you ever hear somebody talking about the Silk Road, they're probably not talking about the ancient silk and spice trades between Europe and Asia. They're probably talking about basically the Amazon of illegal drugs. So the Silk Road is often a euphemism for drug selling and other illegal items like endangered species, to eat, to sell, body parts, that sort of stuff. One of the things that also came about with the dark web is the ability to pay for stuff. We have Bitcoin here. We've got a little miner guy. Bitcoin is not, again, necessarily a bad thing. It's a cryptocurrency, so there's no central bank. It's not backed by the US Treasury or anything in Europe or any other country. Basically, you have a private key, and it can be as long as you want it to be. Just remember it because you don't have a forgot password option. So we've got Bitcoin, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it, but everything is held in transactions. And basically, when you go through and are looking at Bitcoin, you can get Bitcoin two different ways. You can pay for it, and there's an exchange rate. There's a stock market for Bitcoin. Otherwise, you can also mine it. You can set up a couple of computers in your basement, and you can analyze transactions. And the whole idea is that you are going to find this hexadecimal number, and you're going to be the closest one to it. And if you get awarded it, you can get some more information. So a hexadecimal number is not just 0 to 9, but it is 0 to 9, A through F. So once you hit 9, you go A, B, C, D, E, F. This is a 64-digit number, so trying to find that number isn't exactly easy. But I believe when I put this together, one Bitcoin 12 Bitcoins was worth about 120 grand. So putting in a couple of months of work to find one or 12 Bitcoins, maybe not necessarily a bad thing. Some people really like Bitcoin, other people don't. It's a chance to be anonymous. There was a guy over in London who threw away his hard drive with his password on it, his nice long chain. Since he didn't have that anymore, there's a theory that he lost out on about $7.5 million if he were to try to exchange that Bitcoin that he had purchased on there. So he just threw away all of his money. Next up, we have net neutrality. This is something that gets bandied about a lot, and it can be a really complicated thing to explain. Burger King actually put together a really good 2-minute video that explains net neutrality. The whole idea of the video was that Burger King felt their future was in the hands of chicken fries. Who needs the Whopper? Chicken fries are the wave of the future. So in order to encourage chicken fry sales and discourage Whopper sales, they put the Whopper delivery on a tiered payment system. So for the low price of $25.99, you could get a Whopper as soon as it was ready. Now, if you only wanted to pay $4.99, the regular price before this happened, you had to wait. Even if it was ready, it could just be hanging out there in front of you, and you had to wait a little bit longer. So if you start substituting Burger King for your local internet provider, and you say instead of Whopper sales, we're talking about a streaming service. This is where that kind of stuff comes into play. Just by going to a different website, do you want to pay an extra 21 bucks just to be able to access the same sort of product, but since it's a slightly different brand?
If you did, you wouldn't be a Burger King.
Right. And nobody's going to want chicken fries over a Whopper. Well, maybe. So they went through and they did this, and everybody got very, very upset about having to pay $26 for a right now Whopper instead of, hey, we made your Whopper and it's going to sit for 10 minutes. I don't know about you, but I do not want a Whopper after it's been sitting for 10 minutes. It's kind of not that great. Not only that, but it would make your drive-through wait really, really hectic if you had to go through and do all that. So when we talk about net neutrality, we're talking about keeping the Whopper at $4.99 for everybody instead of having the tiered pricing. So I just talked about a whole bunch of terms. And again, if you have any terms that you'd like to chat about, we should be able to go through and chat about those as well at the end of this. I'm going to switch gears and we're going to talk a little bit more about privacy. I've been talking about encryption, the HTTPS, we've got the dark web going on, there's all sorts of things. But there's a great little comic out by Don Quixote, which I found really funny. But he says, if it's on the internet, it isn't private. Whether that is you're speeding at the age of 16 when you got your first car, maybe you're doing something a little bit more illegal. If it's on the internet, it's going to stay out there, and it's going to stay out there forever. But the great thing is with the internet, you get a lot of the same old thing. So how we're getting there is new. The medium is different, right? But what we're doing there is old, new, or it could be both. So if you look at email, right? They had communication, they had letters, they had telegrams, they had Pony Express before they had the internet. So there's a sender, there's a recipient, that's the same. We also have a reason for sending a communication. We have text. Again, nothing earth-shaking over here. We've got attachments, whether we're sending photos, gifts, money in the mail. We can also do that with email now. And there's also spam. Did anybody ever get chain letters as a kid? Yeah, junk mail. I wish they would stop sending me lawn service stuff from a couple of different places, but here we are. Same sort of thing with email, right? You're getting solicited for this brand new product, or maybe you showed interest one time on something else. Let's get some more information. Now, before you opened a letter, before you read your postcard, you never had to put in a password. So that's kind of new. Also, electronic versus physical paper. Delivery speed. We got the Pony Express on one end of things, and we have email on the other side of speed, right? A little bit of difference there. Text attachments have really expanded over the past few years, like I said, you can send money, you can send photos, you can send gifts through email, and then we also have encryption, which is a higher level of security. So this would be like the equivalent of taping your letter shut and then maybe double taping it with like duct tape. So what are some of the things that you do on the internet? You can spend money, you can make money, you can order, sell pretty much anything now. You can find local services. If you're me, you can pay your bills and parking tickets online. You can also apply for loans, you can do your online banking, you can do school, whether it's applying, whether it's taking a class, you can check out apartments to rent or houses for sale. There's a lot of different things that you can do. You can also get and give information. You can email people, you can stay in contact with people, meet new people with social media, stay in contact. You can share photos, watch videos, go live, tweet. You can read news, learn new skills, and you can get directions to just about anywhere. I think I took a trip down to Texas when I was a teenager, right as MapQuest was coming out. And now I stop and think about that. I would never print out directions using MapQuest again. I have my phone. I have Siri to tell me when I need to turn right in 100 feet. So stuff has changed a lot over the last couple of decades. And as Kevin Costner found out in Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. If you build a website, you can do all sorts of fun things. And because of different services out there, you could create a website quicker than I can get through this presentation. And it's gonna look professional, and it will actually have step-by-step guides to reach a broader group of people. So this is a way that mom and pop stores can again kind of compete with the Amazons and the Walmarts and the Barnes and Nobles, all those big stores. You can put together a professional website for $100 a year with very little effort. You drop in a couple pictures, you type in a couple of sentences, you're good to go. But that means anybody can do it. I can look like a really legitimate business dealer and not be. I can be a scammer. According to the US Census Bureau, there were some estimates that in 2017, there was about $453.5 billion spent online. That's about 9% of all of the sales in the United States, and that number is only going up. The year before that, it was closer to 5%. So more and more stuff is coming online. So I'm gonna go back to that slide that I was talking about, what can you do on the internet? And if I'm selling something online, if I'm a local business provider, if I'm paying my bills online, there's an incentive for the city of Lincoln to be online, for the University of Nebraska to have online courses. There's an incentive for them, right? They want to make money, or you want to make money. But when we talk about getting and giving information with email, with social media, with photos, videos, all that stuff, what is their incentive? Where are they going with this stuff? So there's a whole bunch of different ways to be connected. And I've got a lot of stuff up here. We've got a bunch of different social media sites, and a lot of them are free. Very few of them you're paying anything for. I think the ones that you're gonna pay the most for are the dating websites. So we got some stuff up there, OkCupid, we've got some Gmail, some email, some Instagram, some Flickr, some Vine, some Pinterest, some Reddit, Snapchat, lots of stuff. Lots of ways that we're staying in communication with each other, or even just holding on to some of our information, like with Flickr, where you upload a bunch of photos. So how do these websites make money? You know, back in the 30s and the 40s, it was really common for bars, even before then, for bars to have great salty food, right? Oh yeah, come in, the pretzels are free, the popcorn is free, we have this awesome trail mix, whatever it might be, this is free. But man, I could really use something to wash that down with. Good thing I'm in a bar, better order a beer. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Poor Wimpy, he really wanted that burger today. And you also hear the saying, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And there's a new saying that has come out in probably the last couple of decades that says, if you don't know the product, you're probably the product. So if you don't know what they're selling, you are probably what they are selling. So let's talk about this. How do they pay their bills? Grocery stores sell groceries. They might sell clothes, they might sell some other things, but you go in there, you pick up your bag of chips, that's how they're making their money. Bookstores, you go in, you pick up your books, maybe a cat calendar if you're feeling really adventurous. Online retailers, I go to Amazon, I go to Barnes & Noble, whoever it is. I'm again picking out something, having it shipped to me because I'm too lazy to go to the grocery store or the bookstore. Or it's just very convenient. They're making money by selling me something. I go to a bank or a college, and again, they're making money off of my student loans or my mortgage or just the interest off of holding a whole bunch of my money, hopefully a whole bunch of my money. But hosting a website that posts a bunch of images, how do they make their money? It's pretty simple. So on social media, we have John. He likes pro football, beer, and carpentry projects. We've got Jane. She's into knitting, board games, and reality TV. And Casey likes gardening and golfing and reading. What happens with these folks is they're going to get targeted advertising. Much like on TV, when we've got Matlock playing, we've got Charles in charge, who's the boss, yeah. You're going to see something completely different in terms of commercials instead of during the latest cartoons like Batman or like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! They're going to sell cereal and toys to kids, and they're going to sell different products to adults depending on what demographic it is. Same thing with social media, except now we're giving away that information for free. I mean, we're putting this on Facebook, we're following folks on Twitter, we're putting out this information, and the NFL is going to be paying to reach John. Different board game folks are going to be reaching out, or television stations are going to be reaching out to get in contact with Jane. And oh my gosh, Casey's going to have unlimited golfing ads, guaranteed. That all ends up in money, and then that goes into Mark Zuckerberg's pocket. That's not really Mark Zuckerberg, in case you were wondering. He doesn't get paid in likes. He doesn't get paid in love. Little heart things, or even, the sad emojis. I look at my bank account, sometimes make a sad emoji, especially compared to his. He gets money off of targeted advertising. So how does this targeted advertising work? Kind of touch on it. We've got Jane Smith. She is so excited. She's tweeting right now. We've got our little Twitter bird up here. So Jane tweets out and says, "I'm so excited. I just got engaged." And I got some hashtags in there because I'm edgy and I'm cool and I know what's going on. I got Jane and Casey getting engaged. All of a sudden, they start getting some ads saying, "You know what? Amazon sells some awesome wedding favors. And your local florist shop has great flowers. And then Kayak, a travel website, has great honeymoon deals. Have you heard of them? Have you thought of them?" And then we have Pinterest. They have awesome reception ideas. They really do. And that all comes down to companies, whether they're small or big, paying to scrape public data to know more about possible customers. So they get those really specific ads. They're not going to get a lot of divorce ads, is what I'm saying. So I mentioned the word scraping, and I, again, like to cook, so we're going to use a wonderful analogy here. So I like the cookie dough. There's two different people, those that like raw cookie dough and those that don't. I won't judge you. But when you hear scraping, you think of a spatula, you think of something like that. What we have is our form, our bowl, and what it holds is going to be that batter, right? Whether it's your name, your location, these little green fields, the information about us that makes us, that's our batter. And then the application is the spatula. So what they do is that application, that little bit of software, goes through a website and the bowl, and it scrapes that batter or that data out. and it will put it into an Excel spreadsheet, it'll put it into a database, and then we can go back to that data mining, that predictive analysis, where we can look at things and say, you know what, everybody that clicks on X also clicks on Y. This isn't always a bad thing. We hear, I don't know if anybody's used Zillow or Monster.com, where what Zillow does is it goes through each of the websites that the local realtors have, and they pick out all of the houses that are for sale. So they put it all in one place, and they make a lot of money off of ads specifically for mortgages. Similar idea for Monster.com, but with jobs. You may have heard in the news, Facebook is facing increased scrutiny because its Android app scraped text messages and call data. So I have an Android phone, and what that means is that when I was texting my husband about getting a dog, never put it on Facebook, all of a sudden I started seeing ads on Facebook. Hey, have you tried the Purina brand of dog food? Really recommend it. They were going through something where I wasn't putting information into the application, into the website. They were still looking at my private information. I mean, I'm texting with my spouse, not putting that on Facebook for everybody to see. So that's what they're talking about when Facebook was scraping data from Android apps. There's lots of stuff going on with Facebook and privacy. But wait, that's mine. That's my personal information. I'm talking to my husband, my spouse, about a dog. You know, I don't need that splashed all over. Well, it is. It's in somebody's spreadsheet, probably multiple somebody's spreadsheets, in an effort to target me and sell me better dog food or their dog food. So depending on the site, you may or may not own your data. So all those social media websites that I had up there, we're going to look at some of those. So it's always good to read the terms and conditions, the end user license agreements, terms of services. So I know we've got a lot of lawyers in here, lots of folks with JDs. You guys will probably have way more fun reading those terms of service than I did. And they're always going to change. So staying up to date and checking in on those from time to time is important. The good thing is you don't have to be super technical, and you don't have to have a JD to understand the stuff. They are, a lot of social media websites, a lot of websites in general, are updating their terms of service and letting you know, and they're making it easier to understand. But sometimes your intellectual property, what you come up with, the photos you take, the thoughts you have, the slogans you come up with, that's not yours. Depending on the website, you could just be giving them free stuff, free ideas for advertising. Even when you're the one that's taking the photo, when you're the one taking the video, when you're the one coming up with the comic. So it's not just about owning your data, but granting access to it. Social media may be able to use your IP. Their affiliates might be able to use their IP. Anybody might be able to use your IP. So who has access to that? We're going to look at that. Here are some pretty common sites, and we got some check marks there. We also have linked, if you're looking at the PDFs, those are all active. So when I made this a few weeks ago, this is the information that we had. It's very possible that this table has changed just because terms of service change. But every single one of these websites have the ability to share your personal info. Oh, you like college football? You like beer? There you go. We can sell that to our affiliates. In some cases, you don't even own your IP, your intellectual property. If you upload photos and you delete your account, they can't guarantee that it's going to stay deleted. And anybody that wants to can use it. When I did this presentation, I went to Flickr because Flickr usually defaults to Creative Commons license, which means that anybody can use it. So there's some really awesome photographers out there uploading all of their really awesome photos, and if you don't check to see what your setting is, you could just be saying, hey, anybody can use this without my permission or in any way they want. Every one of these websites grants third-party access to IP. So hey, I've got this friend over here, I know everything about you, now I'm going to tell Ryan, and then I'm going to tell Eric. So going through, you don't necessarily control, again, who has access to it. And as I mentioned before, just because you delete it off the internet, they can't guarantee that it stays off the internet. Really fun fact, YouTube comments, I don't know if anybody actually comments on YouTube videos in here. You don't own your comments. That goes to YouTube. You can delete your videos, but they will hold on to your comments until the end of time. So I'm talking about third-party affiliates, sharing stuff with Ryan and Eric over here. How are these social media websites connected, right? Kind of like magazines, not everybody is their own magazine. Facebook Messenger owned WhatsApp and Instagram. So everybody that was leaving Facebook because of privacy concerns and only using Instagram, you're still giving a lot of information to Facebook. It's not quite the same, but you're still giving them access to lots of different photos and spots in your life. So all those folks are connected. Then we've got Twitter, we've got Vine, and we've got Periscope. And Vine and Periscope were actually put together to do Twitter. So Periscope is going to be just a way to share photos, and Vine is GIFs or short videos, and a quick way to share on Twitter. They're all owned by Twitter. Alexa, Amazon's search buddy, hey Alexa, buy me whatever, is actually owned by Twitch. Anybody familiar with what Twitch is? Okay, this is a website where you group play or group crowdsource actions. You can play video games where Ryan says, take one step left, and then Eric says, take one step right, and it can be kind of confusing. But again, it's way into the social media market. We've got Flickr, Tumblr, AOL, and Yahoo. AOL is actually still pretty active in the fact that they are owning Yahoo, which was a next generation tool, so Yahoo Mail. But a lot of folks these days are using Tumblr and Flickr, which are more current to teenagers and those in their 20s right now, or even younger. These folks all sharing information with each other. Outlook, Hotmail, Skype, all owned by Microsoft. Google obviously owns Gmail, they own YouTube, Google and Home. Networking, if you like to make your house automated, Google Home is a great way to do it. But then you literally have Google listening in on your home. So again, something to think about. I enjoyed this one the most. Plenty of Fish, OkCupid, and Match.com are the popular online dating websites right now. They're all owned by the same company. So that's great, right? I've got nothing against OkCupid, but think of all of the information that you put out on an online dating website. I want to find true love. I'm going to put some really good stuff out there for me. Let's make that public, and then everybody can see it. And that is a great chance for phishing scams to come into play. You give a lot of information about yourself for free or at a reduced cost. They're going to know a lot of information about you. Why is OkCupid free? Why is Plenty of Fish free? Because they can look at your actions, what you like, and they can sell that and they can use that. I mean, if you stop and think about it, it's not just limited to these folks. How many have a keychain full of rewards cards? Whether it's with a grocery store, whether it's with your favorite retail store for clothing or home care. You're getting rewards. You know, I drive by Hy-Vee and I see, oh my gosh, our shopper saved over $100,000 on gas. Hy-Vee's not going to give up that $100,000 for free. I mean, they're not just like, oh, we're giving this away from the goodness of our hearts. They have your name, they have your address and your phone number and your email and your birthday. And they know what you buy because you're getting rewards. And you might be getting something cheaper, but again, they know your habits. It's not something that's necessarily bad, but people don't stop and think about it. We've got Pinterest, who isn't really owned by anybody. They're still owned by their founders. Snapchat, again, owned by their founders. And Reddit is owned by a whole bunch of magazines. It's owned by Condé Nast. So the same people that bring you Vogue, well not Vogue, but like Shape, InStyle, a whole bunch of different magazines. we have them there. It's a trade-off, whether you are giving them permission to share your data, whether there's a trade-off between free and ownership, whether it's going to be on the internet forever. I mentioned underage drinking, speeding. It's always something that when folks share pictures of their kid, we now have generations that are growing up on the internet. My cousins, my little baby cousins, they're not going to have much of a choice about what was shared about them when they were a year old, 3 years old, 5 years old. So it's something that can backfire. And so we're going to talk about the Streisand effect real quick. This is a picture that was taken as part of California Coastal Records Project. And Barbara Streisand ended up suing the website. She said, this is an invasion of privacy. She was asking for $50 million for this picture because that's her home. So the suit became public knowledge. And instead of 14,000 people over the course of a couple years looking at these photos, they had over 420,000 people come and look at her house because they wanted to see what the hubbub was about. It's not just Barbara Streisand. We have Beyonce Knowles try to have this picture taken off of the internet. Axl Rose actually tried to limit photographers at his performances because he had gained some weight and he was very upset about how people were making fun of him, which can often lead to cyberbullying. So privacy isn't just an online thing. I mentioned the retail stores. Organizational productivity apps are another thing to keep in mind. I'm going to leave you with one last term here. It's digital detox. So take a break from your smartphone, your computer, your laptop, or your tablet. Just stop and think about what you're putting online. I still have a Facebook page. I still have a Twitter account. I still have a free Gmail account. But I also am aware of what I'm putting out there, not just for the companies, but what's publicly available for somebody trying to scam me. And we have an XKCD comment about being bored on the internet. So any questions?
I have a question. I'm on Facebook,
Mhm.
and I get friend requests
Mhm.
from what look like not really people, specifically targeted to me. I always ignore, mark them as spam, etc.
Yeah.
What are they trying to do there?
They could be trying to get to know you. So there's about 20 different scams that you could run with just being Facebook friends with somebody. And we are out of time, so I'm gonna let Ryan talk a little bit more about online security. But in that instance, they could be trying to know your security questions. They could be just trying to know your habits when you're gonna go on vacation. So your house is empty. It could be a wide range of reasons. Data is power. Your question.